Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Lumiverse. As always, I'm joined with our experienced economy experts, Dennis Mosley-Williams, Tom Frisbee from DMW Strategic Consulting. Hello, how are we, gentlemen?
I'm fantastic. And you?
I'm good. Third recording. I sort of felt like I should be able to, rattle that off really quickly and go with the energy. So I just wanted to try that out, unbeknownst to you guys. So hopefully
How are
that
you
goes
doing,
okay for our
Dennis?
listeners.
Oh, I'm okay.
Oh, is that it? That's all you got today?
I'm having an amazing day. Sincerely. I'm like having just a crazy day. I've been like, let me put it this way. I gotta watch just reel myself in today. Today I am literally so good. You guys may as well just throw rocks at your tricycles. That's how good I am. I'm like, you can't even tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Thanks.
what have we got on the agenda today, Mark?
Hey, Tom, thank you for asking. I think today we've got a cracking little survey it's not little, actually, I shouldn't use that word, but a cracking survey that is a really interesting topic for us. So on the agenda for us today is we're going to discuss the results of Charles Schwab's 2023 Modern Wealth Survey, which for those of you that don't know, Charles Schwab do this quite frequently. But the intent of the survey was to understand how Americans viewed wealth. And what was super interesting and why we want to talk about it today, Tom, is there's a real shift, pardon the pun, but there's a real shift in how Americans are defining wealth. So rather than wealth being defined by a single monetary value, the survey actually found that 62% of respondents describe it as being able to enjoy healthy relationships with their loved ones. So there's plenty more to unpack on that. And I'm going to give our listeners who haven't read the survey, we will link to the survey in the show notes, just a little bit of an overview of what it was all about. So 1,200 consumers completed the survey, a nice spread between male, female, a nice spread across 4 generations, so Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, and Boomers, a spread in household income as well as investable assets and as well as employment status, so whether they're full-time, part-time, retired, or other. So a really expansive survey population, I guess, which obviously gives us a bit of credibility in the results. But here are some of the high-level notes that we're going to discuss today. Americans say it takes an average net worth of 2.2 million to be considered wealthy. But when you go that next level down, among the 48%, so half of the Americans who feel wealthy today, interestingly, the average net worth is only $560,000. So they feel wealthy at that amount. And the reason why this is coming up is because non-financial assets like good health, fulfilling relationships, and career flexibility resonate far more when defining wealth and having large sums of money. Increasingly, Americans say how they measure up to their social circle can also impact how wealthy they feel. And many find themselves comparing lifestyles on social media. So they're the high points, right? People are redefining wealth as relationships, flexibility, health. It's not all about having a large amount of money. In fact, that's not the predetermining factor. And when they're looking for how they are going, in inverted commas, around wealth and how they believe successful they are, it's actually a comparison game by the sounds of things. And they're looking at their peers on social media. So, Tom, I don't know if you had any initial thoughts to kick us off there before we talk about how this might feel and look for advisors that want to take on some of these insights.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first comment I have is, as a Gen Xer, I prefer to be called a slacker. Thank you. No, but on a serious note, just to preface what I'm about to say, because when I first read that, and I'll start by saying, first of all, that if anybody goes and checks out the link, the real meat of what we're talking about today is the first part of the study or article about the study. The following part is more just a justification for why you need to financial plan more with your clients and how the world still needs financial planning and all the rest of it. And that's true. But the aspect of what we're discussing today is sort of in the first part of that article. And then also I've read this in a few different places, a couple of books and also in articles, that there's a threshold for satisfaction around income and money spent at about the $75,000 mark in the US. So what that suggests is that over that $75,000 mark, that there's a declining return of satisfaction for every dollar spent over that. In other words, meeting basic needs, having some luxuries and comfort, and then after that, there's a declining value for every dollar spent, which is quite interesting. So when you look at that notion of someone with, someone in the 500,000s feeling wealthy, that it doesn't surprise me in that sense, because they're looking for the satisfaction that they're going to get from or with that wealth. And if the focus is just on the accumulation of it without context or purpose, that's where the definition of wealth is changing. We've talked about this shift in past podcasts here, past episodes. So I had to think about that one a little bit, because to sort of carry that conversation on beyond points we've already made, I had to really kind of think it through. So the premise I'm working with here is three points. Number one, that people are complicated. Number two, wealth as a concept enables opportunity. And three, as individuals, as humans, we aspire to something as a purpose of meaning for our life. And so through our life cycle, initially getting started with career and, finding our way in the world, and then having children, raising them, if we go there, of course, but looking for the satisfaction points along that journey. And then ultimately we're left, empty nesting, and we've only got ourselves to look at in the mirror, right? So you then have to, be driven by something more, or it becomes pretty empty. So it's almost as if we have this intrinsic drive to find something that brings purpose and meaning to get up in the morning. So if those things are true, then the purpose of one's wealth is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And I remember when I was an advisor, in the sort of mid 90s through the early 2000s, that at that point it was kind of a one-size-fits-all, because it was all about the financial plan. But if we started digging a little deeper with clients, if we took that risk and started digging a little deeper, we found that there was more there. And that's this burgeoning definition of a personal wealth definition. What can that wealth do for us? So it implies that as an advisor, if we truly understand what wealth means to our clients, you need to understand that deeper level beyond just what their goals are. So that presents a challenge then for the forward-thinking advisor in how to tap into that aspiration that a client has, and advocate and guide them in working towards and through a life that's more meaningful in their relationship with the client. And this goes beyond just getting the details required to manage assets or build a financial plan. Those are the starting points that once the strategy's developed, then it all needs to be monitored and managed over time, but you're still left with that bigger question, what's it all for, right? And that, the rest of that is what I'm talking about in terms of this defining a definition for wealth. And that can be really daunting and challenging for an advisor if they look at, having a business of 300, 400, 500 clients. That could be a really daunting challenge to be able to find those personal definitions of what wealth is for an individual. But it makes it highly personal for the client, so it's worth the time. And in my opinion, that's where Lumient really shines, is it allows someone to provide that high level of personalization in a very efficient, ongoing conversation way with the client through their relationship together. So, it is important, because if everything else has been commoditized, the planning, the investment management, and the things that are, delivered around that, then that's really the next frontier, is what does this opportunity your wealth is going to provide mean to you, and what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Dennis, I saw you nodding and taking some notes there. Is there anything that Tom said that maybe resonated with you there?
Tom, I'd just like to know if you'd be my financial advisor. Well said, man. One of my thrills about this this podcast is I've been talking about Tom for years, but very few people get to meet him. It's like, this is the guy I've been telling you about. Well, I want to say a couple of things, of course, and one is, I just wrote down the word risk. Obviously, I'm singing from the same song sheet as Tom. The challenge here is it's challenging for advisors who have been comfortable sort of recognize. I don't think this report surprises anybody. I think that most people would agree that we all know there's obviously more to being wealthy than a pile of assets. That every client, all of us, as we say, we all have these issues about ourselves, these elements that we want to address in some way. But what we've told ourselves for all these years is, that's not my job. That's really not my job. I'll help to the degree I can, but I don't want to engage in that way. And what all the stats tell us, and this isn't the only one, this isn't the only report that tells us this, is that the needs of the client have shifted. What they desire, what they want from us is changed. And something that I've been saying in my keynotes recently is, say, just imagine it's your children. One of your children says to you, I want to be rich. And if you think about it in terms of like, it's your kid, it's your own child, your first reaction would be, oh, good. Like, what a great, and good, Mark. And then you'd ask, what does that mean? And you'd be
there you go
yourself back, because you want to get to the point, I'll just make it about me, where you say, but what you see between your mom and I, that's wealth. You know how mom and I ride bikes and do this? We go to the cottage, I make you sit down every night at 6:00 for dinner. I'm literally giving you a peek in my life here. That's wealth. That's love. That's what matters. So now just pause that, everybody listening in the Lumiverse. That's what you tell your children, because that's the truth. So all those things you'd come up with your pause this, come up with your little laundry list of how you'd answer that question. My question to everyone listening is, well, if that's true, how are you presently helping your clients address those issues they might feel need attention? And then the last thing I just wrote down is, and I'll echo with Tom, what I find so powerful and about Lumient is, it assists you in creating something unexpected. Something that doesn't just satisfy one aspect. We say all the time, healthy, wealthy, wise. And this report mentioned coming out of COVID. In COVID, we had all this opportunity to reevaluate. Well, we certainly did. But Tom and I can show everybody studies and reports that came out before COVID that told us that this shift was in place, this serious shift, dare I say. As the needs of consumers change and what we want to change, business has to match it. We've moved beyond delivering services as efficiently as possible to staging experiences that ultimately lead clients to at least the opportunity for transformation, which is a big word. So let's just define that. What the hell does that even mean? It means this: within your client, you're just creating the possibility that they can reconsider what they believe and how they behave, how they look at their life. Change the conversation from money well invested, commoditized service, to time/life well defined, lived, executed. Stop being an advisor, be an advocate, guide your clients, partner, and create something so that you're on the short list of non-family members that get invited to funerals. Without you, man, never would have happened.
Yeah, and absolutely, Dennis, you're spot on. And to really make sure that people don't misunderstand where this can be appropriate in your client dealings, it's not just about the end game, retirement. Mm-hmm. You can start this dialogue. Remember, and dialogue by definition is an ongoing conversation to establish common meaning and understanding, right? So it's meant to be a process, not an event. It's meant to be something that happens over time when you can, marinate over the possibilities and, really get down to what that means. And so the advisor doesn't have to know all the answers. They just need to be able to guide the conversation on an ongoing basis to help the client discover what they already probably know and encourage them, i.e. advocate for them to take action on it. And that can start early on in their life cycles. It's not just about retirement and what comes next after I've got my big stash or hoard, right? Yeah. I mean, I was talking to an advisor the other day, and his big value proposition, and I'm not being critical here, by the way, because at least he had somewhere he was trying to take people and wants to take people, is he wants to be in a position to work with people for a long time, so that one day he can ask them this, he can tell them this thing. And the thing is, you've got enough, you should spend more. And to him, that's the capstone to a relationship well lived over, years or decades or whatever the case may be. But so at least he's guiding them somewhere, right? But if you back up on that, he's just come back to the purpose of wealth and defined it as spending more. Well, if you know your client and you're willing to go to those places of, what it means for them inside, it may not be about spending money. What is it that he should be encouraging them to do, other than after, 10 or 20 years of working with someone, tell them to spend more money? That might not be their bag. It might not be important. And therefore it's falling on deaf ears and isn't indicating that he truly knows that client and what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help but think about this constant comparison that's at play between, the client or the individual and the hypothetical Joneses, right? As the family name we always compare to. Sorry for any Joneses out there. And why it's on my mind is, we've spoken about this on Into the Lumiverse episodes before, the power of clarity for a client. So in the absence of doing a great, well-being centered, health centered, values-led experience as delivered through Lumia, shameless plug, the only point or the only definition I have of wealth when I work with an advisor is investment number, right? So without that clarity and without that concept, then I'm only ever going to come back to, is my money going up? Because that's the traditional view of how success is, right? Right. And if that's all I've got. And if that's the race, then that's how I win. But anyone knows, and this survey says, that that's not the only race to be run, right? So you've got to help define that for a client. Here's a couple really personal examples. So Dennis, I'll join you and share a bit of my life. But, as a let me be a millennial for a little bit. As a millennial, right, you constantly see on Instagram, growing up, that your mates that get the first house, right? They beat me to it. They've got the beautiful little Instagram picture putting their sold sign up on the board. That's, everyone's seen that. And you go, geez, that's good on them, but maybe I'm behind a little bit. What you don't see is the fact that
leaky roof picture.
The leaky roof picture. Or, when I was thinking about my first house, the person I didn't want to be is the person that bought the house. And we had mates that did this. Person who bought the house, but you never saw them at the pub on a Friday ever again, because they couldn't afford it. Everything went into the mortgage payment. They've got the great little beautiful Instagram picture, and no doubt maybe capital of the house has gone up. But for a good old year there, I missed them at the pub at 24. That was awesome. They're memories that I'll never not have. But no one's playing that game. No one's helping you go, well, what does wealth look like? Is it slapping the sticker on, or is it being at the pub on a Friday, creating memories with your mates? And that only exacerbates as we get older and older and older, and more life events happen. And if the only game is money going up, you wouldn't do half the things that are so beautiful in life. So to use family, right? No one's wealth, actually, no one's probably a strong word, but wealth traditionally doesn't go up when, partner A takes time off to have child number one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if the only race there is money goes up, then don't have kid, and you miss out on that experience.
That's right.
Right. So the whole point here is, as an advisor, if I think about practically what do I do here, your job, your role is to help create that clarity of what's the race look like for the client.
Correct.
Right. Because in the absence of that, the race that they're running is numbers go up and number in comparison to other person. And that's unhealthy.
Yep. And the opportunity for advisors is this. And I think Tom said it perfectly. It's like, the value of a financial plan. The first time I said this, it was a joke. The best jokes are funny because they're true. So I said, well, the value of the financial plan is that now you can talk about stuff that's actually important. And I was like, ha ha ha, sort of making fun of everything they know. But honestly, it's the truth. And this is what Tom, I think, was getting at. So once you have a financial plan in place, what you really need is an advocate to guide you through some self-discovery to figure out what you want, as you said, your story to be all about. That's an aspirational plan. So, and then you need to connect yourself as an advisor to your clients achieving their personal aspirations. That is not only valuable to your client in your enlightened self-interest, it's going to get a lot of your clients talking about how amazing you are and the impact and profit you don't make them, but leave them in their life. What a job. What a beautiful calling is.
Oh, yeah. And the gifts that you can bestow upon people by being there to help them with that. And at the very least, cheer them on as they move towards it. Right. And there might be some need for some accountability or some nudging along the way, but if you've got the permission, that's certainly a role you can play, right?
You have permission to nudge?
I'm sorry?
Did you get permission to nudge? Compliance officer wants to.
Yeah. I need that documented on file. Thank you.
Yeah. So in the interest of leaving somebody with a nugget of, what can I do with this? Start the conversation.
Yeah.
And oftentimes a really good conversation can start with a great question that opens the door. And in this case, one can be simply reframing the fact that we've got this plan together. We've got your money set up in an allocation that's going to let you sleep at night. That's all awesome and good. And absolutely, we're going to continue to do our best job there. And your goals, the plan's got it dialed in, and we'll obviously be checking in on progress towards that stuff. But now that all that's done, what's next? What's it all for? And those are two questions that can start that conversation and just get it started. It's not like you need a big lightning bolt moment, but it gets the conversation started. If you track it and note some of the important things that come out of it, then that's something that you can take and carry the dialogue on for, meetings in the future. And then eventually lead to a place where you can start saying, okay, so what are you going to do about that now? and then you can start working out a framework for how to do that. And, these are aspirational outcomes versus the goal outcomes that the plan is looking after. So the plan is the base or the stage or the jumping off point to this other area that you're already there. And I'm going to say that you've got the implied permission to get it started.
Right on, bro.
Can't finish it any better than that, Tom. Thank you so much, good sirs. That has been a ripper topic for us. I think one that we're clearly passionate about, and some really practical tips for our audience that, as they read the survey, as they go, how do I bring that back into my practice? Just starting the conversation, getting in there, acknowledging people are complicated, but to help them connect to that purpose and what it is they actually want to do is key. And you'll be surprised at the answers you'll see from your clients. So Tom, Dennis, as always, thank you so much for your time. We'll check back in next month.
Always a pleasure. Crack on, Mark.
Say number again. Number.
We'll add that to the list.
Okay. Take care, Jets. See you later.
See you guys.